My name is Russ Kyle. I give tours, crime tours. Fremont and Howard Street. The first thing a visitor sees when he enters San Francisco from the Bay Bridge. Welcome to our dysfunctional city. San Francisco, once known as the city that could, is now the city that can't. And the three musketeers of San Francisco's catastrophic failure stand right behind me. The Millennium Tower, the Salesforce Tower, and the Transbay Terminal. Steel, the backbone of any major construction project. In an enormous construction project such as the Transbay Terminal, the sourcing of the steel is the most critical purchase from the deep pockets of the city fathers. In the long and storied history of municipal graft and corruption in San Francisco, it is not difficult for one to imagine that the purchase of the steel for these construction projects was not made on the basis of the steel's strength, but on the basis of its ability to repay a political favor. Talk to the people who've lived here a while, and the general consensus is that San Francisco has never been more unlivable. Homelessness, needles, and feces get all the buzz. But there's something lurking just below the surface that rattles those of us who've lived here a while. It's the gnawing realization that we've been wrong about everything. That all the groovy gestalt we grabbed onto from the 60s has been a failure. Buzzkill? Yeah. But at a certain point, you have to admit it. When it ain't working, it ain't working. Former Mayor Ed Lee was a man of little consequence, but he should be remembered for a few things. Number one, for croaking on the floor of this Safeway. Number two, being Willie Brown's favorite poodle. Number three, he is responsible for shepherding in some of the most disastrous financial boondoggles the state of California and the city of San Francisco has ever seen. Yeah, every civic project in San Francisco's history has suffered the taint of corruption. But Ed Lee's administration took the specter of graft to new heights. The Transbay Terminal, the Central Railway, and the new Bay Bridge retrofit were all besmirched with the stench of putrid political patronage. And now, in the forgotten, far-flung southeastern quadrant of the city, we're discovering a new cesspool of municipal depravity. Look down there. This is the site of the abandoned Hunters Point Naval Shipyard. The city has enormous plans to build a large live, work, retail space down there to go along with the housing up here. In 1974, the Navy weighed anchor and shipped out, but they left a problem behind. Sure, for generations, sailors have been leaving problems behind in every port of call of the world. But this is not some stubborn strain of gonorrhea or other STD that can be cured by a pill or a shot. This problem has a half-life of 1,500 years. Yeah, in World War II, Hunters Point was vital to the war effort in keeping the fleet afloat. But it was after the war, when nuclear testing started in the Pacific, that this base really became a strategic centerpiece for the Navy. You've all seen those Cold War films of H-bomb testing out there in those tiny Pacific atolls. Yeah, and you remember how they'd always float a few Navy ships close to the explosion just to see how they'd hold up. Guess where they'd tow those ships to test them for radiation? And then sandblast them to clean them up. You guessed it. They towed them right through the Golden Gate and past Pacific Heights down here to HP. Hunters Point has traditionally been an African-American community. Nicknamed Butchertown for its stockyards, the Navy took advantage of this fact and also did radioactivity experiments on the animals. City Hall today has to be often reminded of where this neighborhood is. But in the 40s and 50s to downtown Brass, it did not exist. Contaminated soil and a big dig for a shiny new feather for Nancy Pelosi's cap. Yeah, good old Nancy got this project going and brought in her nephew Larry's firm, Lennar Homes, to build this enormous development. Then they hired super fun cleanup outfit Tetra Tech to handle cleaning up the radioactive mess. Of course, that whole bidding process for these contracts was squeaky clean and was handled in a manner beyond reproach. Except that whistleblowers from Tetra Tech started coming forward with claims of shenanigans and fraud in the testing of the soil samples for radioactivity. Nancy was allegedly instrumental in getting those whistleblowers squelched and fired. But just like the tenants and landlords at the left-leaning Millennium Tower, there are no winners except for the lawyers. Because you see, just like the new Bay Bridge retrofit, the new Central Railway, and the new Transbay terminal, it looks like somebody out here in Butchertown screwed up. If you so much as glanced at your voting ballot, you couldn't help but notice that in SF, one political party pretty much dominates the process. So voting doesn't really leave one with a sense of having the ability to affect change. So things like large-scale boondoggles funded by overinflated property taxes and tech bubble largesse are going to continue to be rubber-stamped right on through to the head of the line. And City Hall's going to have every opportunity to procure inferior steel and hire crooked new cleanup crews. And nobody bats an eyelash, as long as we can all feel good about banning straws and grocery bags. And there's always another crime just around the corner.